What does it mean to be human? That's the question we've been tasked to answer, and let me tell you, it's been almost impossible. Being human doesn't have one exact root or reason, but it's more of a subjective concept that changes with different perspectives. For some, our emotions make us human and set us apart from other living things. Others think it's our DNA. But neither of these answers really hit the root of the problem. They only touch the surface. In my opinion, the most prominent concept that makes us human is our sense of self. Our personal identity, as well as how we see ourselves in relation to the rest of the world. Having a sense of self and self-concept separates us from all other living things. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I'm almost certain my dog doesn't go around pondering who he is and the meaning of what it means to be canine. Humans, however, do this exact thing daily, and the reason being is our curiosity about ourselves. Our personal identity is one of the main things that makes us human. It's how we think of and characterize ourselves within our own minds. This identity can be based on a multitude of attributes. In this essay, though, we're going to explore a major four: race, gender, dreams, and lastly, what we make it. The color of water is an amazing example of how race affects our personal identity. Throughout the entire book, James is constantly questioning his race, whether he's more white or more black. This constant turmoil inside his head over race leads him to question who he really is at all. James is a prime example of self-concept in action, because he's asking the golden question: who am I? Kasaya Inota shows us that gender is a huge part of our personal identity through her struggle over accepting her place as a woman, like her own mother. Gender and race are both a huge part of our personal identity because they are major ways that society chooses to categorize us as humans. In the movie Man on Wire, Philippe is a wonderful example of how dreams can define us, no matter how stupid our dreams may be. And lastly, the majority of our personal identity is actually formed by us ourselves. In Apple Cake by Abigail Thomas, we see this exact concept. Our personal identity is the main thing that defines us as human, because it is what we choose to show to the rest of the world. By defining different aspects of our personality or characteristics, we are ultimately defining ourselves as human because we are the sole species to do this. In the end, we get to decide what makes us human. How we see ourselves in relation to the rest of the world is another aspect of our sense of self that makes us human, because it has the ability to change our personal identity. While some animals compare themselves to others of their own kind, humans are the only ones that let this comparison change the way they think of themselves. How we compare ourselves to others within society adds to how we view ourselves and affects our self-image and confidence. The major ways we compare ourselves to others is through our differences in success, popularity, money, and culture. One example of this concept is Willy Loman from A Death of a Salesman. All Willy wants in life is to be successful, but he constantly compares himself to others, so he can never be truly happy with who he is.
You know the trouble is, Linda, people don't seem to take to me.
Oh, don't be so foolish.
I know it. When I walk in, they seem to laugh at me.
Why? Why would they laugh at you? Don't talk like that.
I don't know the reason for it, but they just pass me by and I notice.
Well, you're making $70 to $100 a week.
I gotta be at it 10, 12 hours a day. Other men, I don't know why. They do it easier. I don't know why I can't stop myself. I talk too much.
This constant comparison to people better off than him causes Willy to look poorly on himself, and it overall changes his self-image and who he thinks he is. Another example is Alex in the movie Free Solo. As soon as Alex is being filmed, his view on risk-taking and how he lives his life changes because of the social pressure associated with being watched. This was one of the first times that Alex backed out of doing a climb, and it was because the added social pressure made him question who he was and his usual habits. In A Raisin in the Sun, money is a big issue for the Younger family because they don't have a lot of it.
I'm looking in the mirror this morning and I'm thinking I'm 35 years old, I'm married 11 years, and I got a boy who's got to sleep in the living room because I got nothing, eh? Nothing to give him but stories, like on how rich white people live, eh?
Jags, Wally.
Damn these eggs. Damn all the eggs that ever was.
And go to work.
They compare their economic status and wealth to those around them, and in turn, it negatively affects how they view themselves. The only reason the youngers are unhappy with how they're living is because they can see what they're missing. Their hope for the future only makes them even more disappointed with the present. Finally, the last comparison we will talk about is that between cultures. This is one of the biggest ones because culture affects our identity the most out of any comparison. Differences in culture have the ability to spike almost any emotion, but in Sandro Cinero's poem, Those Who Don't, the major one is fear. Having the ability to see yourself, then see someone else, and notice the similarities and the differences is such a simple thing, but is crucial in constructing what it means to be human. Comparing ourselves to others makes us human because it changes our sense of self and causes us to question our personal identity as well as our self-concept, who we are. In our society nowadays, and especially in America, we are surrounded by technology, which only makes these comparisons more apparent. Social media is used by many people to show off their best and usually not their most realistic selves. Growing up in an age with technology meant that I was able to connect with many more people than I could have without this access. It also means that comparing yourself to others is much more prevalent because there are so many more people you could see and relate your own life to. Now, more than ever, comparisons are changing the way we see ourselves in relation to the rest of the world and within our own minds. People are humans because of how we are able to identify ourselves in the context of this world. We are one of the only species with a sense of self, meaning that we have the ability to question and to decide who we are. As we have learned, this sense of self, however, also comes with our incessant need to compare ourselves to others. These constant comparisons we make lead to jealousy, greed, and self-deprecation galore. Society would be a whole lot better if we could just up and stop making comparisons, wouldn't it? No more self-criticism, no more judgment, no more hate for those better than us. We could all just live our lives worry-free. It would be a perfect society. We have the ability to make ourselves who we want, right? Couldn't we just make ourselves all envy-free, so we wouldn't even be affected by the comparisons? If we really wanted to, I think we could. But that's the thing. If we did, would we really be human anymore?